Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask Ivy. I'm really happy to come to you today and answer some more questions, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first one comes from Melanie Mulrooney, and she says, I would love to know your absolute must-have supplies. The things you would take in your travel kit or choose to work with if you needed to really restrict yourself for some reason. The ones you'd make someone pry from your hands before you'd give them up. So thanks for your question, Melanie, and I'm happy to answer it. Now, when it comes to traveling with art supplies, you can ask my husband and he will tell you that I am not good at packing light. I tend to overpack. I did it for the last workshop I went to, and I'm trying to get better about it. But it's really hard, like you want to take all your stuff, and it's not always the best way to do it. So I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite things that I love to take with me. For substrates, I am really enjoying these Canson mixed media art boards. They're just really, they're small enough to take with you. They're really firm and they handle quite well with lots of different media. And so I've tucked this into my suitcase a couple times and I've painted on it while I'm away. And that's fabulous. These are awesome. They also come in watercolor boards and they're not very expensive, but yeah, I really like them. So in terms of paint, here's where I don't tend to be very in control. I love my little craft paints because they're so easy to travel with and they're inexpensive and they come in all these gorgeous colors. And so I often will take several Martha Stewart paints, and I also really like the Blick matte acrylic paints that are now on the market. These come in an endless assortment of colors and they're very matte, and I think they're like $2.40 a bottle or something. So for art journaling or doing a quick painting on the go when you're traveling, they're just awesome. If you're going to do a bigger painting or something you're going to be looking to sell, you might want to go ahead and use your Goldens. But I think these travel really well and I just love them. The problem is restricting yourself to how many you bring. And I would give you advice on that, except I haven't learned how to control myself. So I would just say bring your favorite colors. Hopefully you don't have 24 favorite colors like I do. So that is still something I'm working on. The other thing that I love is collage. I do a lot of collage when I'm gone. I'll take a couple of anthropology magazines with me, or I'll pick up a magazine in the airport. And I always bring my soft gel matte medium. This works as a great glue and sealant for your collage. And then I gotta have my clear gesso. A lot of times I like painting over collage, but after you've used the gel, it kind of makes it slick. It doesn't have a lot of tooth. So I use this on top to give me that tooth that'll hold the paint and the pencil and the charcoal a lot better. So love having a little bottle of clear gesso with me. Okay, the other thing for paint, I like to bring a heavy-bodied titanium white. And I've found that the craft paints with the whites, they're just not creamy enough for me. They don't have enough coverage. So I really like to bring a titanium white. This is just a Liquitex heavy body. And so that's really good to pack into your travel kit. Okay, as for drawing materials, I love to bring my charcoal pencil. I love working in charcoal. It's so fun, it's freeing, it's a little messy, so I wouldn't necessarily do it on the plane. But it's great to do when you're, just sitting outside, doing a little sketch. I love sketching faces with charcoal. It's just super fun. And so I always have a charcoal pencil with me. I also always have a Stabilo pencil, usually in black. I have them in a few colors as well, but I love to bring this guy with me. I bring several of them with me because I go through them. And make sure you bring a good sharpener as well. So that's key. And then I recently have fallen in love with the Lyra water-soluble pencil. So this is this is a 9B, and I have a 6B as well. And these are really fun. They're water-soluble, so you can go ahead and wet them, and they get kind of a nice wash look. Again, just really fun and fat and chunky. Great for doing some loose drawings. So I love my Lyra pencil. For ink, I told you I don't have a limited pack here. So bear with me, but these are all awesome supplies. I love these Pentel color brushes, and I've talked about these in another video that I did a while ago. But they come in like a sepia tone, a gray, and a black. And I think they're really beautiful. They have a brush tip and a really rich dark ink. It's not permanent ink. It is water soluble, so you can get some yummy drips with it and washes. And that's a really fun tool to take on the road with you. And I've never had a problem with it leaking or anything like that, so that's always handy. My brushes that I bring a handful of brushes, but I always make sure I have my Princeton number 6 round blender. And this guy is just like one of my favorites. I've talked about him multiple times. You've seen him probably on my blog or seen me use him in lessons, and I just love these. I have several of them. I go through them pretty quick. You can be really rough on them. They're really great for, scumbling and dry brushing and getting paint on and kind of in a rough manner, which I like to do a lot of times. But you can also get a really soft blend with them too. And they're tough, so I need tough because I'm hard on my brushes. So he's awesome. And then this one too, I love this for washes and getting my gesso down. And this is a 1-inch Princeton Select flat wash brush. And I love all the Princeton brushes. I love the color of the handle. I mean, who doesn't love a turquoise handle, right? So I love these brushes, and they come in all sorts of sizes, and they're great. And they're nice and small, so they're easy for travel too. And then finally, I love this little guy. This is a little pop-up water dish. And so it travels like flat, like a little round cup sort of thing. But then you pop out the bottom and you have a little water dish. And what's nice is the edges are kind of slotted or curved, so your brush just hangs out in there kind of nicely. So this is great to throw in your bag. It's small, it's non-breakable. A lot of times when I'm in the studio, I use mason jars as my water container, but obviously you don't want to be packing glass. So this guy is made by Faber-Castell, and they're great. They're really handy. So that's kind of where I'm at with my travel kit and the things that I love to take with me, and I love all these supplies. I use them all frequently in the studio and out of the studio. And so hopefully you guys might want to pick up some of these if you don't have them already. I know we all love to buy more materials and supplies. And then the other thing that I have to mention that I use a lot when I travel is my iPad. I've got an iPad Pro. I feel very lucky and privileged to have one, and I got the Apple Pencil, and drawing on this is phenomenal. Now, I was working on an older model iPad, when I did Paint and Pixels, and you couldn't put your hand on the surface, it would react. But now with the iPad Pro and the pencil, you can rest your hand on the surface of the iPad just like paper, and so sketching on this is really, really fun. And just experimenting with color, and it's just awesome. So if you get a chance to get an iPad and you want to, use it when you travel, it's just a phenomenal tool in the studio and out of the studio. So I had to mention that because I do a lot of creating on it when I'm on the plane and stuff. And it's really cute too. People will see you drawing on your iPad, and they just stop in their tracks and they're like, "What are you doing? This is so cool. Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like it." So it's kind of neat to see people react to an artist working on their iPad too. It's kind of fun. People get almost childlike and get kind of giddy about it. So that's fun to share with them. All right, so hopefully that answered your question, Melanie, and I'll move on to the next question. So this question comes from Shay Kent, and she says, "I would love to hear anything about your journey into art and into the art business." So it's interesting that you asked me this, Shay, because I've been thinking a lot about, my childhood and getting into art as a young kid. And it was definitely something I always loved doing. I always was coloring and drawing. And I think I got my first set of oil paints when I was 8. And it was just something I just really was passionate about. But what was really so critical in my artistic journey was that, number one, my parents were incredibly supportive, and they encouraged me and actually got me into private lessons with a teacher when I was living in Australia. I don't know if I've told, many of you guys know, but I grew up in Sydney, and I got to work with a really successful professional artist in Sydney, who taught children's classes on the weekends. And so I went to one of her classes, and I was in that class I was 8 at the time, with 8 to 10-year-olds. And about 2 classes in, she approached my parents and said that she would like for me to be in the adult class. And, you know, they were kind of like, oh, really? Okay. And of course I was like, I don't want to be in the adult class. That's going to be boring. I want to hang out with my friends and be with the kids. But I, you know, decided to step up to the challenge and started attending the adult classes at night 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it was amazing. And she did not baby me. She right away started teaching me the principles of design and art, and had me mixing colors. I mean, she would have me sit and look outside and look at a tree, and she'd say, well, what color is that tree? And I'm like, green, you know. And she's like, no, it's not green. It's a multitude of colors. I want you to mix every single color you see. And so she worked me hard, and it was amazing. And looking back on it, you know, I feel like I owe a lot to her. Her name was Norma McDonald, and I'm sure she's passed now, and I can't find any information about her, so it's kind of a bummer. But I just owe a lot to her, and she taught me everything. And when I was drawing princesses constantly with long flowing hair, she would say, no, you're not going to do that right now. You're going to do landscape, or you're going to do a still life. And she pushed me, and it was really an amazing entry into the art world. So after that, you know, art was always something that was a part of my future. I knew I wanted to be in the art world professionally. And I ended up going to, when we moved back to America, I ended up going to the Ringling College of Art in Sarasota, Florida. And I studied there and got my degree in illustration. And I dreamed of working for Disney. You know, Disney recruits from Ringling quite frequently. And so I just really wanted to work for Disney. And I wanted to draw all the princesses and all the romantic, pretty stuff. And anyway, that did not happen. I didn't get a job at Disney, but I created a pretty solid portfolio and ended up following my boyfriend at the time to Texas. And he went off and, you know, had a fabulous job, and I was at home like, what do I do? And I found a job actually at a Montessori school teaching art. They didn't have an art teacher. In fact, I applied to the job because A, I was desperate for a job, and B, I'd worked with kids before, so I thought I could be a teacher's assistant. But then when they saw that I had a BFA in art, they said, well, would you like to start the art program here? And I'm like, seriously? Okay. So I have no teaching experience. I don't even know what they were thinking, but somehow I really just took this challenge on, and I developed this art curriculum for the school, and I started working in the classrooms with the kids. I didn't have my own art classroom. I had a little art cart, and I would push it in, and all the kids were like, wee, it's the art teacher. It was pretty cool, and they were amazing to work with, and I got to really revisit my education and share it with them, and I was very studious about it. I kept notes on each child, and I was studying the creative development of children, and just got really into it, like super into it, like geeked out big time. And it was great. And it was so ironic because the entire time that I'm teaching, I'm thinking, oh, I failed. I didn't get my job at Disney. I'm such a loser. And now looking back, I realize how important that opportunity was, and how it taught me so much now about my teaching career with you guys and with the classes I'm making. And so from being a teacher at a Montessori school, we ended up moving to New York, and I got a job at the Whitney Museum of Modern Art and worked with the trustees there as an assistant to one of the secretaries. And that was an amazing art job that I took for granted and felt like I was somehow less than because I wasn't doing my dream of being an artist. I was being basically an admin, but I was working in an art career in an art, beautiful art institution, and got to learn about modern art and experience people buying this art and showing it. I got to meet Chuck Close, and it was really, looking back again, a phenomenal opportunity. From there, we moved back to Texas. I had no life My husband was working in the family business, but I mean, we went from New York City to this tiny town in Texas, and it was, wow, really hard. But what I had found, because we'd been moving so many times, that I really liked setting up the house. Like, I really liked arranging things, so I started to study interior design. I did an at-home class course and started studying it, and we ended up from there moving again to Portland, Oregon, which is where we are now. And I quickly enrolled into an interior design business school here and did that, and ended up getting a job with a really great small firm here in Portland. And I was an interior designer for many years. And then I had my first child, and I had to give it up. I wasn't good at balancing my career and being a new mom. I was kind of a mess. And I was just a mom for a while, and I felt completely lost and completely depressed, and I was kind of a wreck. But then I started to take walks. You know, I was always taking walks with the baby in the stroller, and someone had told me, well, why don't you start a blog and take pictures and do some creative stuff? I was like, all right, I guess, you know. And so I started going on these walks and taking photos, and all of a sudden photography became really interesting to me. And so I got very much into photography, and then I ended up making organic skincare products because my baby broke out in a rash and I didn't know why, and I didn't like all the chemicals that are in the products we use. So I dove into that. Like, I was hungry to learn something and to be passionate about something. So I researched herbs, and I would go harvest herbs, and I'd make concoctions, and I'd make creams and oils and perfumes and all sorts of things. Like, I just totally went crazy. And I started an Etsy shop. I had to take photos of my products, so I had to learn photography. And that creatively drove me. So then after I kind of got sick of making creams, I was super into photography, I was super into Etsy, and I started noticing I love all the vintage stuff on Etsy. And so I started an Etsy shop selling antiques. I would go to Goodwill, and I would go to vintage stores, and I would hunt around for antiques. And again, I researched the heck out of them. I wanted to know, where did this teacup come from? Where did this spoon come from? And I would take these beautiful pictures of them and creatively set them all up and arrange them, and then I would sell them. And that ended up taking me to Paris, so that was pretty neat. I got to go to Paris and actually shop the flea markets, so that was amazing. And then I burned down on that too. And I'm thinking, I'm a crazy lady. Like, I cannot create a life for myself. I can't create a sustainable career. And I started taking online classes with Jean Oliver, actually, and it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about how much I love to create art. So you can see this is a very long, winding path into this art business. And then after a little while, I was doing more and more art. I was doing more photography. I got published in Somerset a couple times. And then the biggest probably break in my career, or whatever you want to call it, is when Jean Oliver asked me to teach on her platform. And so I was a part of the third installment of the Study Under the Masters. And that, made me realize how much I loved teaching online. I loved researching and bringing information to people and delivering it and writing syllabus and coming up with projects, and I just loved everything about it. And so I did another class for her, Mobile Art Magic, and then my husband, who's a web developer and graphic designer, said, maybe we should try this. Maybe we could try building a platform for you. And so we started out, and we had a couple of failed starts, but finally we kind of got up off the ground, and just last year I launched my first online class on my platform, and I just keep on going. I keep on making more and more classes because I love it so much, and it's been very, very rewarding. It's been overwhelming, but it's now my career, and I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, sorry for the long story, but you asked, so I wanted to share with you kind of the background of where I'm coming from. And now, it's been so great offering new teachers to teach with me on the platform, and to have them be with me, like having Petra and Jean Marie and have Robin, and it's just been such a great experience collaborating with them and helping them to get started and to get their beautiful gifts out into the world. So that's the story behind me, and I'm sure I left out stuff, but you're probably like asleep by now. So that's the answer to that question, Shay. So very convoluted, kind of crazy journey, but so out of that, if I could deliver some word of advice or some kind of inspiration, is to follow your curiosities. Elizabeth Gilbert talks a lot about that in Big Magic, and all of those little things where I made a turn in my life towards something were leading me here. And even though I didn't know that at the time, and I felt a little bit nuts, I was following a curiosity, and it was leading me back to my true creative self. So follow those curiosities and really dive into them and work hard at them and see where it takes you. And it may not take you anywhere, or you may not even know where it's leading you, and that's okay, But I really think as creative people, we need to kind of listen to those little curious whispers that come up. I think they're hints towards leading you to joy. So that's what I can take away from my very non-linear existence so far. So since that was kind of long, I'm going to quickly answer one more question. And this comes from Aladalis Acevedo. I don't know if I said that right, so forgive me. But she asks, any practice exercises to be more comfortable with color? I'm kind of terrified of it. So yes, I totally get that. In fact, I feel like right now I'm relearning color, and I'm wanting to study it in a much deeper way. I love giving you guys book recommendations, and I have to say I really like this book. It's called Color Lab, and it's by Deborah Foreman, and it has some really fun projects in it. And each chapter kind of focuses on a color or a color combination, and it just gives you some really great ideas for projects, and as a way to just kind of sit down and have some very clear instruction, and it allows you to explore the color and not be so overwhelmed by color, because color is overwhelming. It can be really overwhelming. My other suggestion is, I know you guys have heard me talk about my color book, and this is by Design Seeds, but they have a great website. I know I've talked about it. I think I talked about it in the last video too, but go onto their website and pick a color palette. Pick one that you like. Find your paints to match it, whether you use craft paints or you mix your paints yourself, and work strictly in those colors. And I think that's a great way to limit your color choices. I think it's a great way to look at color and see if that color palette resonates with you. How does it make the painting feel? How do colors look next to each other? And explore the lights and darks, the different values of the color. So I highly recommend, if you're new to color, to start with a limited color palette, and that really helps. Even if you study red and orange for a while, like really break it down, or you do a painting in black and white with one extra color added. I mean, those are the kind of things that we did in college, in art college. We didn't get to touch color for quite some time. We had to work in black and white strictly until we really understood value. So color is something to be studied. It's something that's fascinating, but yes, overwhelming. So start slow with your color choices, start limited, and work up from there. All right, so I hope that helped answer your question, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Ask Ivy. Thanks so much for your questions. Bye.